Welcome to Catch Outdoors. I'm your host, Captain Rob Modies. This podcast is centered around the great outdoors, especially down this way in the most southern regions of the continental U.S., the Florida Keys. So kick back for the next 40 minutes or so and get a taste of my Florida. This week's episode is number 90. 90. Holy moly. Titled, Do Your Part, Don't Be Trashy. But first, some news and the weekly fishing report. Big news. If you haven't already figured it out, Catch Outdoors is now on Spotify. It's also been added to the Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, and Google Podcast, with many others standing by. I've submitted a lot of links, so it takes a little while for these things to bust through, but those are the four, the big four, I guess I call it. There are many, many others out there. You can also listen to it directly by just going to my website, catchoutdoors.com, and click on page 3 where all of my podcasts are listed, and then clicking on an episode will take you right to Spotify. There'll be more episodes added on that list. The links are only good for like episode 70 on down or on up, depending on which way you look at it. So I'm going to go on there and add more links here in a little bit. So hopefully we'll get more of them up so that you can go back and listen to the older ones if you want to. Each episode will also continue to be released early on Tuesday morning. And surprise, there are no more canned ads. Just little old me. Yeah, I made a business decision to step back and do this podcast the old-fashioned way. I mentioned this last week. This will give the option of me doing promotional ads, spoken ads, or just promoting a product that I like without interfering with the contract that I had at Waypoint. So a little more freedom. No, a lot more freedom, quite frankly. So I'm looking forward to that. This past Saturday, the family celebrated my mother's 90th birthday. It was officially actually June 7th. Man, oh man, I have to tell you, she hasn't slowed down all that much. She tells me getting out of bed in the morning is an issue, but once up, she's on the go. Heck, I'll bet most of us have trouble getting up in the morning. Heck, I'd much rather lie around with a cup of coffee and catch up on overnight news and then get up. The only time I'm ready to jump out of bed around 5 a.m. is on a go fishing day, and I think a great many of you can identify with that. While I'm on the subject of birthdays, good grief, let's just rattle them off here. Janelle started us off on May 26th. Yeah, I've got an enormous amount of Geminis in my family. My dad in heaven, his birthday was on the 31st of May. June 5th is my brother. June 6th is my cousin Alex. June 7th is my mom. June 8th is more cousins. June 11th is my sister. And yes, there are more. I kind of feel left out in November. Yeah, I'm like way out there. I'm that Scorpio dude mixed up with a whole mess of Geminis. I have found out that I get along well, though, since Janelle is a Gemini and I'm a Scorpio. I find out that worked out quite well, actually. Fishing. I didn't go fishing. There just was too much going on. I mean, seriously, the past 6 days or so is crazy. So, but it's on the calendar for this week. I can tell you some good news, though. The supposed huge batch of sargassum is breaking up, and we are no longer seeing large patches. As a matter of fact, news programs came out, scientific news type stuff hit and said, it's not doing what we thought it was going to do. So, nah. As a matter of fact, it's back to the long strings that are normal this time of year out in the Atlantic. And that's what we all love to troll around and fish around because that's where the fish hang out. So we had a ton of dolphin tournaments this past weekend. It seems like there were just nothing but dolphin tournaments for almost two weeks, I guess. That's mahi-mahi, by the way, for those of you that don't know there's a fish with the same name. I don't want to freak you out. We don't go hunting for flipper. These are the ones you have in restaurants. They almost always put it in the restaurants out of state as mahi-mahi. So anyhow, the catches were outstanding. Many of them over 30 pounds. I mean, it was crazy. And a lot of the bag limit things on the 3, there was one guy turned in one over 42 pounds, I think it was, 42 or 44 pounds. So just some monsters out there. This is the season. I've said it before. Fishing right now is really great. This is summertime. This is June, baby. You don't get much better than this. Well, it does, but it's the beginning of the summer. And what happens is we have an awful lot of fish that spawn right now. And so they're very, very active, eating and spawning and, huge school snapper. My gosh, yellowtail, mutton, stuff like that they're just on right now. So this is the time to fish in the Keys. Yes, a new book's in the works. I got quite a few positive responses to my joke about the working title being The Trials and Tribulations of Fishing the Florida Keys. I might go with that. I don't know. I might be onto something. It's sort of like those dummy books, with the capital DUMMY books. Yeah, dummy for computers and dummy for cooking. In our case, we actually bought one dummy for air fryers. When we first got an air fryer, we were clueless, and the instruction manual was tiny. Then I thought, we got to figure out how to cook on this thing, which we have. And by the way, it's probably one of the greatest kitchen appliances that's come out since the microwave. If you haven't tried one, do it. So anyway, the trials and tribulations of fishing the Florida Keys. It is a learning curve for me. And I explained last week the Keys are 100 and something miles long, so all the waters are not the same. And I'm learning that. And I want this book to be instructional. I don't want it to be authoritative. I don't want it to be like I know everything. I don't. I know a lot about Islamorada, and I can tell you all about fishing that area, but I don't know much about the rest. And although I fished all of it now, officially, but anyway, that's where we're going with that. So hopefully we'll have it out by Christmas or so. This is requiring a lot more thought and a lot more research and double checking and things like that. And it hadn't even gone to the editor yet. So it's a process. Speaking of books, I still got some signed copies of all three of my first books. They're at catchyOutdoors.com. You can order them there, and the price includes priority shipping, and a couple of them are discounted. So check it out if you get a chance. Episode 90, Do Your Part, Don't Be Trashy. I thought about doing this a long while ago, mostly because I can't believe how many times, whether I'm on the boat, in the kayak, or on foot, I see trash. It's some of you are probably nodding your heads yes. It's ridiculous. I have a bucket that I carry on board the boat that I use for my trash, but by the time I get home, it has other items I've picked up, either off the water or underwater. Nice thing about the Keys is the water's crystal clear. You can see where somebody's dropped a daggone beer bottle on the bottom, so you can pick it up. It's crazy. I mean, it really is crazy. Sports drinks, drink bottles, water bottles, empty water bottles. And then there's the odd stuff. Empty cans of mosquito repellent. Let's see what else. Sunblock bottles and the like. I have found empty aspirin bottles. I have found the most bizarre stuff out there, either on the bottom or floating by the kayak or boat. And I do the same thing on the kayak. I take the bucket on the kayak with me. And when I walk, Janelle and I generally carry a plastic bag in our hip pockets, a trash bag. And then before we go, or if we find a really bad area while we're hiking, we'll just clean up and take it out with us. I don't know. I just feel like I'm doing my part, I got to thinking about how we should all do our part, whether it's picking up someone else's litter or even bigger environmental efforts like a couple of friends of mine started doing back in 2016. I'm going to talk about them because I'm real proud of them. I feel like dad. Well, I'm just a lot older than they are, but anyway, Captains Chris Whitman and Captain Daniel Andrews started Captains for Clean Water, a grassroots effort to change the way the waters of Lake Okeechobee are routed. And the way, basically, they were freaking out, just like a lot of us were. I worked for years as a guide on the west coast of Florida, Pine Island Sound, Matlacha, that was my home waters originally. And then I moved down into Estero and eventually fished off of Naples and down into the 10,000 miles, where anybody wanted to go, that kind of thing. And it just was a mess. I mean, all of a sudden, what we had was just going away rapidly. The disappearance of grass flats in lower Matlacha was the first sign I had. Matlacha was one of my favorite places to fish. basically the powers that be moved into Matlacha Pass and made it an entire huge manatee zone, which most of us disagreed with because most of Matlacha in the middle to upper areas is nothing but oyster bars, and manatees aren't known to hang in oyster bars. They might use it as a travel route at certain times of the year, but to shut it all down to slow speed, we all thought was kind of goofy. And then they kept the channels open at 25 miles an hour, which is that's where manatees, that's where they travel. These people are goofy, man. I don't think any of them have been boating when they make when they made the manatee rules ages ago. So, but there was a positive effect for me. By making all of Matlacha slow, it made the fishing better because almost every single boat left except for guides. The everyday angler guy, he would go around the corner going up into Pine Island Sound and fish there, or fish in San Carlos Bay or out in the Gulf of Mexico. They wouldn't even bother with Matlacha. So what happened was the fishing got better and better and better as time went by. And because you had to go slow. And by the way, Matlacha is not that wide. It's not that big an area. It's not that big a pain to do that. So what happened though was enormous rains, mismanagement by South Florida Water Management, mismanagement by the Army Corps of Engineers. You can point a lot of fingers, and it was a lot of problems. Governor, whatever you want to point it at, lots and lots of water got dumped out of Okeechobee in the west and toward the east. They had problems too, but they still do. But the west side was really getting hammered. What went from pulse releases is what they used to do, kind of representing like what storms would do. Let some out, close it off, let some out, that kind of thing. Worked pretty well. Well, all of a sudden, we were just getting inundated with water. And I'm not sure why. I really don't. I look back at all the press releases and stuff, and I'm like, why? Well, that fresh water just pretty much annihilated the grass beds. The lower part of Matlacha is an oyster grass system. It's beautiful. It was beautiful. And the oysters require a flush of fresh water. They won't live without it. And all of Matlacha has that because the river drains into it pretty much, the Clusatchie River. So over time, what happened is the grass flats started to die back because of sunlight. They started dumping so much crap in there that the mud, silt, things like that built up. Tannin got richer, and the sunlight couldn't get through it, and the grass died. And it didn't take long. I mean, seriously, I fished in there for probably 11, 12 years regularly. Yeah, at least on charters, almost every day, or if not every other day. And you could really see that we had more sand than grass all of a sudden. It just sort of happened, and that was depressing. Well, that's exactly what Chris and Daniel saw, because they were both guides. They were out there fishing, and they were looking around going, this is terrible. So they took it upon themselves to form a grassroots group called Captains for Clean Water. And their whole effort was to stop the dumps from the lake. That's really where it started. It wasn't anything bigger than that. It was just, why are we being dumped on? We have to fix this. We got to control it. And it has to be done in a better way. We realize that the water gets big in the lake. We realize that the southern dam, the berm, will break at any time because it's made of dirt. That was another mistake. And we don't want to flood a whole bunch of people out or kill a bunch of people south of the lake. So that, there's this trade-off going on. So they took the bull by the horns, as I like to say. And I'm going to read this directly off their website. This is what's happened now. This is now in the future. Captains for Clean Water is a grassroots 501c nonprofit organization that fights to restore and protect our water resources. In 2016, we started as a couple of fishing guides that had enough of Florida's poor water management practices, devastating the estuaries that we rely on. We were convinced that if everyone knew about the issues, they would be fixed long ago. The solution is known, but has been delayed for decades due to a lack of political will and public awareness. So we set out to change that. We work to advance science-based solutions through efforts focused on awareness and education, empowering people like you to speak up for our water quality and hold elected officials accountable. Together, we've united the outdoor industry, environmental groups, business community, and concerned citizens around these important issues, and are seeing more people than ever get involved in the fight for clean water. As a result, progress is happening at a record pace, but we still got a long way to go, and we need your help. We must fight to protect these valuable resources and our way of life for future generations. I think what's amazing about this is what they have pulled together. Started with 6, and now it's thousands. That's what's the cool part. It's all of us. It's a huge chunk of Florida. They have worked so hard and have made a noticeable difference in water quality, especially in Southwest Florida, and in the movement of water toward the Everglades and Florida Bay, which also, the place I fish now, Florida Bay, is being starved of fresh water because this water is being rerouted. It's not coming down through the river of grass like it's supposed to. They are instrumental in changing that. What has happened is a crime, plain and simple, and we owe it to Chris and Daniel. We owe them a lot for changing that and getting things better, way better. The weirdness of observation. I wrote that in capital letters in my notes, and I wanted to talk about that as part of this podcast. I was raised in Florida, and I remember what Clearwater Beach looked like in the early 60s. Pristine, and it got its name for a reason, Clearwater. Over time, things changed, though. Same with Fort Myers and the islands of Sanibel, Captiva, North Captiva, and Cayo Costa. The water there in the 70s and 80s was mostly clear with an abundance of seagrass. Not so much anymore. At least in the southern half of Pine Island Sound, Matlacha Pass, and around the tip of Sanibel. Why? Development, poor water management of the overflow from Lake O, and, of course, septic tanks. Something needs to be done about that. And of course, that fight continues. It's a lot of money to change over to a sewer system and to put people on sewers. And people down in, especially in Lee County, always seem pushing back on that. I don't know. They're going to push back to the point where they don't have water around them to fish in anymore, and that'll be a shame. The weirdness of observation is this, the thing I have noticed, and other people have said this to me. People that have recently moved to Florida or even visited for a week or two see Florida as paradise. They have no idea what it used to look like only 25 to 30 years ago. I mean, come on. They are coming down from big cities like New York, states like Pennsylvania, Ohio, Illinois. To them, Florida always looks great. Sorry, made me chuckle. I have no desire to live in those states. Okay, I'm not picking on you. All right, I've visited. I've been there. Heck, I've been there a lot back during the business days. I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh, but having been there, Florida's beautiful. I mean, it really is. I can't imagine. You come down here in January and you look at the Gulf of Mexico and the Atlantic Ocean and the sunrises and sunsets. Fortunately, those haven't changed. So here we are in paradise. But those of us that have lived here for a long time can see the changes, and we want to stop the detrimental ones and fix what we can as fast as we can. That's not going to happen without your participation. Plain and simple. You got to get involved. I'm a long-standing member of the Coastal Conservation Association, or CCA. Heck, I joined back when it was called the Florida Conservation Association, the FCA. It started back in '87. The big draw then was not so much water quality, but dwindling stocks of game fish in the Gulf of Mexico. The early problem was along the coast of Texas, where the commercial overfishing of redfish and sea trout was beginning to affect the entire Gulf coastline, including Florida. The new group, FCA, managed to get redfish and trout registered as game fish. They basically relisted them as game fish, and that was a huge victory over the everyday anglers, for all of us anglers along the Gulf Coast. Today, CCA is active it's everywhere. There's a California group now. Virtually every coastal area in the United States now has a CCA representative of some sort. And they've rebuilt stocks of fish that were slowly disappearing due to overfishing. Now, their mission's a little different than Captains for Clean Water. They still clearly understand that The best stewards of the marine environment are fishermen. Ta-da, go figure. CCA works to protect not only the health, habitat, and sustainability of our marine resources, but also the interests of recreational anglers and their access to resources, the ones we cherish, the places we want to fish. We do not want to be shut down on fishing. Catch and release, people. A whole mess of us practice catch and release now. We understand the ramifications of taking every single fish out of the water. Ain't going to be nothing there for our grandchildren. And that's wrong. And that's got to stop. And that's what CCA does. They also have done replenishment stuff with redfish. They've done all kinds of things to make everybody understand how important fishing is and how important the anglers are. If you love to fish, join CCA. Show that you love fishing in Florida. It's not a waste of money. Down here in the Keys, a big push is on to not only protect the only coral reef in the continental United States, but to actively restore it via coral restoration. This is a big one. Over the past 20 years or so, there's been a noticeable degradation of the reefs. I got the following from the Florida Keys and Key West website, and I asked permission to simply read portions of it here on my podcast, so I will. But first, I want to tell you, I've been out there, I've snorkeled, I've fished over the reefs. I don't know if many of you realize if you're sitting in 30 feet of water, you can see the bottom. And I've gone to a lot of the really beautiful patch reefs out there and snorkeled on trips that I've taken out of Penny Camp as well as on my own, and I've been diving out there. There's a difference. There's a difference. There are beautiful, beautiful areas, don't get me wrong, but there are definitely changes that I notice. And again, that gets back to that observation thing. I am old enough and have been around long enough to have seen these changes. And what's scary is instead of the changes taking 100 years or 150 years, it's only taken 20 years. And that's not good. And again, it gets back to population and a lot of other things going on, but we really, really have to work hard to get this turned around. I got the following from the Florida Keys and Key West website and asked permission to simply read portions of it like I said here, so I'm going to do that. Conservation-minded divers interested in aiding in reef restoration in the Florida Keys can join marine scientists during hands-on coral restoration dive trips. This is too cool. These ecotourism experiences enable Keys visitors to connect with the area's underwater ecosystem and actively play a role in protecting coral reefs for future generations. The Key Largo-based Coral Restoration Foundation works with several dive shops in the upper and middle Keys to offer full-day programs that include a morning educational session followed by working dive trips to coral nursery sites to clean, prune, and prepare coral trees for planting. Basically, I'll throw in my words here, they're literally growing coral. They're growing coral in these farm areas that can be taken and moved to the reef areas legally and to help the reef areas get restored and grow back. Interested? Visit coralrestoration.org for more info. iCare, headquartered in Alamorada, love the name, offers full-day education and coral transplanting dive programs on Alamorada area reefs with multiple dive operators. You can visit icareaboutcoral.org. That's a pretty cool thing. I mean, what they've done is they've gone into all the different dive operations that work Alamorada, which is primarily that huge area around Alligator Reef. And they are working with them to build programs to where divers can go out where they want to go. I mean, everybody wants to dive out there. But while they're doing it, they can plant coral. So it's a serious positive. And I think that's pretty awesome. In the lower Keys, Captain Hooks, I also like that name, on the Big Pine Key team, has a Big Pine team with Reef Renewal USA. It's an immersive citizen science initiative. Divers take a training program, then work on outplanting of nursery-raised coral on the Keys reefs during the dive trips. There's also opportunities to work on coral fragmentation, a technique that helps to speed coral growth in land-based nurseries. So we have that going too. We don't just have nurseries in water, we got them on land. And there's a huge one down here, as a matter of fact. Visit CaptainHooks.com. Moat Marine Laboratory. and aquarium features multiple locations on land in the Keys where visitors can learn about the island chain's coral reef ecosystem. This is real important. Don't just blow by when you're driving down the Keys. There's all kinds of things to see. Yeah, I know there's a lot of bars, and man, that's tempting. And there's a lot of eateries on the water. I know that's tempting. But you might want to jump into some of these sites to check out what's going on down here when it comes to ecotourism and the ecosystem. Locations include the Florida Keys National Marine Sanctuary's Eco Discovery Center in Key West. That is an awesome place to visit. Landside coral nurseries in Islamorada and Key Largo, what I was just mentioning, that are open for tours and hands-on coral fragmenting experiences. You can do it. You can go in there and participate. Elizabeth Moore International Center for Coral Reef Research and Restoration on Summerlin Key, where public tours are offered. And, of course, the Moat Coral Reef Exploration exhibit at the Florida Keys History and Discovery Center in Islamorada. Visit moat.org for more information. I should be a travel advisor. Well, whatever, Just trying to do my part, like I said when I started this thing. By the way, this one's probably not going to run 40 minutes. I'm going to get off the soapbox here in just a little bit, but I got one more thing here. But now I got a couple more things, but we'll hang in there. I moved to the Keys in August, but I've been fishing down here since the early 80s. I've seen changes, mostly a push of fish species that have moved from one area to another. I find this really interesting. I'm guessing due to habitat and food supply, but to me, that's what it would be. I was shocked to find that the huge grass flats near Rabbit Key no longer hold the plentiful trout that Jonelle and I used to catch in that area 25 years ago. I mean, that was a go-to spot. And it wasn't that we kept trout for dinner there or anything. We just went there for the enjoyment of catching lots of fish. There were trout and ladyfish and jacks, the three just mixed together in enormous numbers. And it really didn't matter what tides you were on or what wind you were on. You could pretty much go up around Rabbit Key on the grass flats and put artificials, flies, shrimp under popping corks, didn't matter. You'd catch gobs of them. And these fish were, the smallest fish would have been 15 to 16 inches, and a great many of them were 20 to 25 inches. These were huge trout. They ain't there now. They left. They didn't die. They just left. And bonefish have gotten smaller, and tarpon have changed some of their migration patterns. That's something else I know about because I fished them 25, 26, 27 years ago in that area, north of Islamorada. I'm not sure why this is happening, but I'm very thankful for a group of dedicated folks, scientists, fishing guides, and anglers that are very interested in this and are watching this problem. Bonefish and Tarpon Trust was founded in 1997 when a group of 6 fishermen became worried about a noticeable decline in numbers of bonefish. What started with 6 is now thousands, and I'm glad to say that I'm a part of that. My favorite fish to target is fly is tarpon. I love throwing flies at tarpon. I don't know. I can't think of anything I like more than the initial strike of a silver king and the complete bedlam that these fish cause as I do my best to clear the fly line off my deck and survive those first 30 seconds or so. It'd be tough to not have that experience anymore. Man, it gives me adrenaline just sitting here talking about it. I gotta get back out there soon. Yeah, baby. And there's this. Recently, BTT, Bonefish Tarpon Trust, has given scientific credibility and research to the Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission to help improve regulations on bonefish, tarpon, permit, and barracuda. So their research is massive, folks. You have no idea until you go in there and read what they've been up to. They're researching the patterns of bonefish and tarpon and how they move all the way from South America up into the Florida Keys and north to the Panhandle. They're researching the Bahamas, especially why are the bonefish so big in the Bahamas? Why haven't they left? Why are they somewhat stable? And do the species mix? Do bonefish in the Keys mix with the ones over there by they're doing a tagging system where you can report your tags. And all that's crazy important. But BTT deserves angler support. not only from us Floridians, but from those of you that love to fish these species in the Florida Keys. If you're serious about momofish, permit, tarpon, I love fishing for kudas. If you're serious about that, then you really need to spend a little money. Support BTT. Join them. It's a great organization. I believe research is necessary. It's basically a necessary basis for all positive changes in water quality and fishing resources. For too long, regulations almost always worked against the recreational angler. It's true. Commercial fishing is very important to Florida's economy, but recreational fishing is also important. I pulled these reports up. These are recent reports. Commercial fishing brings in about $3.2 billion a year and supports 76,000 plus jobs. 3.2 billion. On the other hand, saltwater recreational fishing brings in $9.2 billion each year, 3 times that amount, and supports 88,500 jobs. Add freshwater fishing to those numbers, and it's eye-popping. The combined economic impact is $13.8 billion and jobs supported by 120,000 people. It's pretty crazy. Now, I got nothing against commercial. Don't get me wrong. I love going to the restaurants, and I love eating fresh snapper and fresh grouper and whatever is caught out of the waters. But controls have to be done on them as well as on recreation. We can't just pile it on the recreational angler. We have got to control the commercial as well. Not sure how that's going to happen, but we need to know that recreational fishing is bigger than commercial fishing in dollars and cents. So fishing's important. You're not going to catch fish if the water quality's gone to crap. Plain and simple. So next time you're fishing by boat or on foot, do your small part. Pick up a little trash and help keep our waters free of plastic and our mangrove bushes free of fishing line. Want to do more? Here are those websites for the groups I've mentioned in this podcast. captainsforcleanwater.org, ccaflorida.org, bonefishtarpontrust.org. Yeah, get on it, people. Join them. Support them. If you fish the waters of Florida and you enjoy fishing the Florida waters, and I don't care if you're part-time or full-time, get involved with these folks and take a bucket with you and pick up trash when you're out there, or a bag. Put it in your back pocket if you're walking the beach and pick up some trash. Feel free to email me at catchoutdoors@gmail.com if you'd like any more information. Thanks so much for the notes, comments, and the great questions via email and text. Keep them coming. If you enjoyed listening to my podcast, please tell a friend, leave a review. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Catch Outdoors is presented by little old me, Captain Rob Modes. Facebook page is Catch Outdoors. The website's catchoutdoors.com, where you can find all the previous podcasts and a schedule of what's to come. Until next time, get outdoors and enjoy.